Hello. We're talking to zoological anthropologist Dr. Nicola Blimey, who for more than 20 years has been studying the effects of animal-human interaction. Relentless human progress can often profoundly change the natural environment of many animals. And Dr. Blimey has been telling us about some rather alarming recent discoveries.
Naturalists working on the Galapagos Islands have found that tortoises no longer have enough calcium in their diet to form a proper shell. And so they've been seeing as many as 3 tortoises sharing the same shell.
That's very worrying.
Especially for the tortoises.
What's causing it?
Nobody knows. But creatures in other parts of the world are suffering a calcium deficiency too. In northern France, whole flocks of blue tits have been discovered sharing the same beak.
Oh, regardez les têtes bleues! Quel dommage!
And last year, you probably read about it in the papers, a man in Florida had his leg nearly sucked off by a toothless shark.
So, although we don't know what was causing this, the chances are that it was because of some sort of human activity.
Usually the case, I'm afraid. Humans never stop to think that what they're doing might have an effect on other creatures. And I'm sorry to say that naturalists and wildlife filmmakers are just as bad as everyone else. Bird watchers don't seem to realize that birds don't like being watched. It drives them absolutely bonkers. Preening their feathers, for example. Birds didn't used to do this, but now they're obsessed with their appearance because they're constantly being looked at. The worrying thing is the effect that ordinary people have on wildlife. In 1992, a bee was discovered in Yeovil, humming the melody of a pop song. Which it can only have heard on one of those gecko blasters that teenagers carry about with them. I think it's time to start putting up "Be quiet" signs, don't you?
Dr. Blimey, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. A shocking state of affairs, I think you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen.
I agree. A shocking state of affairs, I think you'll agree.
I agree. Yes, I can see the family resemblance. Anyway, Pete, tell us about today's never-before-seen Sydney kidney films.
Well, this is one of my favourites because we see Grandad Kidney use camouflage to stalk an animal.
Ah, something that he pioneered in the natural history film world.
That's right. He developed the skill initially because he was a very shy man and didn't want people to notice him.
Yes, didn't they used to cancel his lectures at the Zoological Society because they thought he hadn't turned up?
And he was there all the time, that's right. I remember being invited round to his house for tea, and I'd never know which part of the room he was in. It was only when I saw a piece of cake move that I'd know exactly where he was.
He disguised himself as a cake?
No. He'd picked up a piece of cake to eat it. No. The first rule of camouflage is never disguise yourself as something edible.
For the obvious reason. But didn't he invent something called smelliflage?
Indeed. Many animals have poor eyesight, but a keen sense of smell. So Grandad Sydney would make no attempt to disguise himself visually, but would make sure he smelt exactly like the animals he was filming. Smelliflage.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, but strangely unpleasant. Anyway, let's see the film now.
Today I am on a mission of mercy. I have been entrusted with the safe delivery of a box of artificial beaks to the wild animal hospital run by the legendary Jewish veterinary surgeon, Dr. Livingstein. I'm greatly looking forward to meeting the first man ever to put a fractured snake into plaster, and whose pioneering technique of speech therapy for parrots has since been adopted for use by people. Oh dear, what's going on? The air is an unfamiliar domain to me, but I believe that this is not normal behavior for an aeroplane. Extraordinary. The pilot has abandoned the controls and is walking about on the wing of the aircraft. He's having his lunch. I don't like to judge my fellow man, but this chap seems a wee bit irresponsible. Oh, not again. Oh. Now he's drinking as well. I think I may lodge a complaint when we land. Oh, I seem to have fallen out of the aeroplane and I'm hurtling towards the ground. This is one of the most difficult situations for a naturalist to be in, but if I can just manage to get... I had received a biff on the boko and been unconscious for some time. But where was I? Incredibly, I'd been brought to the very place I'd been going. And there was the great man himself, Dr. Livingstone. I had never met the good doctor before, and was immediately impressed to see how his gentle, kindly demeanour calmed the sick animals in his care. It was heartening to know that this poor pelican, suffering from thrush, would soon respond to medication and be his old cheery self again. But before Dr. Livingstone and I could sit down and have a good blether, there was an unfortunate incident. A python, being treated for asthma, had decided to discharge himself from the hospital before his treatment was finished. A very foolish thing to do. And before Dr. Livingstone could reason with him, he had disappeared into the jungle. Keen to repay the hospital for their hospitality, I offered to track down the missing serpent. Now, the python is normally a difficult creature to follow, because having no feet, he does not leave a footprint. However, an asthmatic python is a different proposition. I shall simply follow the heavy breathing. I am also using camouflage, so that I blend into the background. Now the python has taken to the trees. Naturally, I disguise myself as a bird, a transformation so convincing that other birds mistake me for one of their own kind and bring me beakfuls of insects, which out of politeness I am forced to consume. But the python, having eaten nothing, is extremely peckish and pounces on an unwary native. It must be frustrating when you're very hungry and your breakfast keeps trying to get away. Ah, the poor python, weakened by hunger and asthma, is unable to hang on to his meal. And now he's taken to the ground, on his last legs, so disguised as a tiger, one of my best, I think, I at last catch up with him. Using an old boy scout wrestling technique, I've soon got him in an arm lock, and back to the hospital we go. And what a touching reunion it was. The python, subdued and clearly regretting his foolish behaviour, and Dr. Livingstone, caring and concerned, tucking his ailing patient up and happy to forget the whole incident. That night, we enjoyed a celebratory dinner of cooked monkey. I remarked to Dr. Livingstone that one of the monkey heads seemed strangely familiar, and he told me that it belonged to the pilot whose aeroplane I had fallen out of. A monkey flying an aeroplane? Indeed, he said. Flying across Africa was a dangerous business, and only monkeys were prepared to do the work. But unfortunately, they were not very good pilots.
It's not a real canary, Pete.
I know, but I think it's cruel to keep birds in cages.
He's right. Birds should be allowed to fly free in their natural environment.
Yes, but even when they are, life can often be difficult for them, as this disturbing film from Scotland shows.
Oh, aye. There's been unemployment here for as long as I can remember. And it's getting worse, right enough. With a lot of young birds coming up now, they'll probably never work at all. And after a while, it really gets you down. It makes me very angry, you know. But at least I'm still out there, trying to get a job. Because I know quite a few birds now that have just given it up altogether. Aye. Given up? They have, aye. But I can't give up. I've got a family to provide for. That's the wife up there, on that branch. Aye, that's where we live. Not much of a home, is it? It's not even got any leaves. I mean, the wife, she'd love a bit of foliage. But what can I do? My beak's tied.
You can't find work? Don't want work.
Don't want to work. Don't want to work. That's a joke, that is. Here, let me show you something. That's as far as I can fly now. I've worn my feathers off. Looking for what?
He could retrain.
Huh?
Try a new job.
You ponce.
Show initiative.
Retraining. Retraining, is it? Oh, aye. I can see myself getting a job as a budgerigger. And what sort of job would you have in mind for a bird that spent his entire working life as a hornbill, eh? You can't expect a bird to turn his beak to something he's no aptitude for. Oh, come on, darling. Come on, eh? That's it. That's it, right? I love you. Oh, I love you. Aye, come on, darling. Aye, aye. Oh, for Christ's sake! That's what happens, you see. You've no work, you've no self-respect. Next thing you know, you can't get an erection. Aye. It's very sad when it affects the children. But you can't help yourself. The smallest thing and you just bite their heads off. And afterwards, you regret it. But the damage is done. And the kids are all stressed and everyone's upset. Aye, unemployment doesn't do your mental health any good at all. I know some birds that just lose the place altogether. They crack up. You know what I mean? And a stork exposing himself in public. He can't be right in the head, can he? Aye, I'm at the end of my feather. I couldn't even get a job working for that Bernard Matthews. So, if you're no wanted even when you're dead, what's there to live for? You ducking buzzards.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the show. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, show's over. Off you go now. Come on, good night. On you go now. Nothing to see. Good night.